Are you an established small business owner or aspiring entrepreneur? Would you like professional advice to help your business grow and succeed? Well, look no further. The Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center is the territory's #1 resource to move your business forward. Enjoy no-cost advising, low-cost training, and technical assistance from experts in both the public and private sectors. The VISBDC is nationally accredited and sustained by the University of the Virgin Islands and the U.S. Small Business Administration. Visit us at our locations on St. Thomas, St. John, or St. Croix, and follow us on social media at VISBDC. For easy access to all our training and networking events, be sure to join our newsletter and download the VISBDC app. The Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center, here to help your business start, grow, and succeed.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the VISPDC's hosting of the USPTO series, Trademark Basics webinar. Participants will discuss what all entrepreneurs, small businesses, and startups should know about trademarks. Our presenter will highlight what trademarks are, the benefits of federal trademark registration, and the basics of that registration process. We'll also talk about why it's important for any new business to select a trademark that is both federally registrable and legally protectable. At the end of this session, the audience will know where to get free resources from the USPTO. Allow me to introduce today's presenter, Mr. Jason Lott. Jason Lott is the managing attorney for Trademarks Customer Outreach at the United States Patent and Trademark Office, where he specializes in helping small business owners understand trademarks and the federal trademark registration process. He began his career at the USPTO in 2000 as a trademark examining attorney. Here's a friendly reminder to place your questions in the chat, and they will be addressed by the presenting team either directly in the chat or later during our question and answer segment. A copy of today's presentation will be attached to the post survey email after the live session. We encourage you to take a few minutes of your time to briefly fill out the survey that lets us know how we are doing. This data is essential to us, rendering these services complimentary to you. So without further ado, Attorney Lott, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And good morning, everybody. Hello there and welcome. We're going to dive right in, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your questions that you might pop into the chat as we go through the day today. As noted, I'm going to answer as many of your questions as I can at the very end. Just a quick warning, as you'll know, I cannot provide legal advice. So if the question you're asking calls for legal advice, I won't be able to answer it, but I will do my best to provide some sort of information so you can help yourself in many ways. Okay, so as you can see here today, we're going to be talking about trademark basics and what every small business should know now and not later. I often like to think of my job is to teach you about trademarks, what they are, why they're important, and how the federal registration of your trademark can help you build your business. And as we go through today, I'm going to do my best to thread that together so you can see for you as a business owner why trademarks and federal registration are so important. So this is what we're going to go through. We're going to talk about what in the world a trademark actually is. Before I started at the USPTO, and actually before I took a trademarks class at a law school, I thought I had a pretty good idea of what trademarks actually are because we encounter them every day in our lives. But there's so much more to trademarks. So it's very important that we're all on the same page. We've all laid the same bricks in the foundation, so we're all building off of the same information. We're going to talk about why you might want to consider registering your trademark with the USPTO. We're going to spend the bulk of the time talking about how to select or choose or create a strong trademark. I'm very briefly going to dip into filing and registration, just give you the highlights of the things you might want to think about and the things you would need to know if you're going to apply. We're going to hit some resources, and then we're going to get to your questions. All right, so let's talk about what in the world a trademark actually is. So instead of starting off with a legal definition, which is what most lawyers would do, what I prefer to do is give you some examples. So if you take a look at the logo that you see on the screen, I'm sure that all of you immediately recognize that as the Apple logo. But my question is, what product or service do you think of when you see that Apple logo? Now, for me, anytime I see the Apple logo, I automatically think phones, or I think tablets, or watches, or desktops, or laptops, or earbuds, or streaming services. So as soon as I see that logo, it automatically calls to mind very specific products and services. Same thing with Coca-Cola. I see Coca-Cola, boom, I'm automatically thinking about their soft drinks. I see McDonald's, boom, I'm thinking hamburgers and French fries. Amazon, buy whatever I want and get it in 2 days. Samsung, consumer electronics. Microsoft, hardware, software. Google, search. Nike, shoes. Ford, trucks. So every single time you see or hear or experience a trademark, it automatically calls to mind very specific products and services. And that relationship between the trademark and the underlying product and service, that is key. Without that relationship, it is not a trademark. It's just a word, or maybe a phrase, or maybe a cool looking design, or a picture, or an icon, or something like that. It is only a trademark if it is actually being used to indicate the source of specific products and services. And that really gets to the legal definition of what a trademark is and does. It's any word, symbol, combination, or combination thereof that indicates the source of products and services and distinguishes them from the products and services of another party. Another way to think about it, though, is legal protection for your brand. Now, if you've been attending various workshops with the SBDC or other folks that you might know, you might end up talking to some marketing people, and they talk about your brand. You got to think about your brand. What's your brand? Well, a brand is an overall sort of marketing concept for how people feel about you when they experience your trademark or your product or service or something like that. Now, as you might be aware, it's very difficult to protect a feeling. But what you can do is protect a piece of that overall brand, which is your trademark. It is a piece of property. It's called intellectual property. And like any other piece of property, it's something that could be bought or sold or transferred or inherited, right? Passed down to the next generation. So there's all sorts of things that you can do with a trademark because it is a piece of property. So that is what a trademark is and does. It is something that indicates the source of specific products and services. Now, let's talk about what a trademark is not. A trademark does not mean that you legally own a word or a phrase. It does not mean you can stop other people from saying that word or that phrase. And it does not mean that people owe you money if they say that word or that phrase. I have heard that before. Jason, if I trademark this, that means that anytime somebody says it, they owe me a nickel. No, that is not true. That is not how it works. So let's take an example like Apple. So Apple Incorporated uses the word Apple to indicate the source of their phones, tablets, desktops, laptops, and so forth. It does, and they also have a federal registration for use of the word Apple to indicate the source of their products and services. It does not mean that Apple owns the word Apple. They don't own it. They can't stop me from saying the word Apple. I do not owe them money because I've said the word Apple. You know, Apple, 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 Apple. I don't owe them any cash just because I've said the word Apple. But what it does mean is that Apple has the exclusive right to use the word Apple to indicate the source of their various products and services. So if I invented a new smartphone and I tried to call it an Apple phone, yeah, that's going to be a problem. Apple is going to have something to say about it. And if I applied to register it with the USPTO, yeah, probably the examining attorneys are going to say, no, Jason, get out of here. That's, better than that. Apple is the one who has the exclusive right to use the word Apple to indicate the source of their products and services. Right. So it's a pretty common misconception. And, I've had friends who've been like, said something really cool and they're like, trademark. I just trademarked it. That means I own that phrase. Nope, that's not how that works. Okay. All right. So for those of you who want to be hyper technical about it, a service mark indicates the source of services and a trademark indicates the source of products. But honestly, you don't have to worry about the difference because the word trademark actually encompasses both products and services. So you don't really have to worry about the difference. You can just refer to it as your trademark or even just your mark. And throughout the day today, you'll probably hear me using the word mark. It's totally fine to refer to trademark as a mark. Okay, so let's talk about the most common source identifiers that you and I encounter every single day. Some studies have shown we might see 10,000 to 15,000 different trademarks every single day. Now, our brain might be seeing all these things through our eyes, but our brain is filtering some of those out. So we're not consciously aware, perhaps, of all of those trademarks that we see, but they are very common. Most brand owners are going to have a brand name. Maybe they have a slogan. Maybe they have a logo. These are what I like to think of as the big three when it comes to trademarks: brand names, slogans, logos. They're mostly what we think of when we hear the word trademark. And it's what most brand owners are going to have, from a small business owner all the way up to, your big time companies. They're going to have a brand name. They might also have a slogan. They most likely will have a logo, but it's really up to you as the brand owner what you want to do. So, if you decide, yes, Jason, I would like to protect a brand name, you have some options. Okay. If you apply to register with us, you might apply to just protect the brand name alone, regardless of what it looks like. So as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner there, I have an example. This is, of course, Coca-Cola, and they have registered the wording Coca-Cola with our office to indicate the source of their soft drinks and syrups and tonics and all the other various things that Coca-Cola does. Now, you'll see that right there and you'll say, weird, Jason. I don't ever remember seeing Coca-Cola used in Times New Roman font. Usually it's in their fancy cursive Spencerian font. And yes, that is true. However, one of the ways that they have registered their trademark with us is like you see it on the screen. It's an option called standard character format, which means it's protection for the wording regardless of what it looks like. And so that means over the life of their trademark registration, when they submit their evidence to us of how they're actually using it out there in the real world, we are not really going to care what font it is in or what style or size or color. It's really broad protection for the wording itself. And that also means if somebody tried to register the wording Coca-Cola in some a different sort of font or whatever, for related products and services, we're going to say no, because Coca-Cola has protection for the wording for use with those things. Okay, really broad protection. Same thing is going to be true with slogans. If you happen to have one of those, you could apply to register a slogan with us. If you have a logo, which I'm sure some of you do, yes, that is something you could apply to protect with us. You can see the Always Coca-Cola button right there, and also the two-dimensional Coca-Cola bottle design as well. So, your logo might have no words in it. It might be a combination of wording and a design, or maybe it's just stylized wording. That's okay. You can apply to protect what your trademark looks like. Now, that would be a separate application for protecting the wording alone. What you see on the screen, those would be 4 separate applications right there. But you could do it if you wanted to protect what your trademark looks like. And obviously, as you can see here, Coca-Cola sure does want to do that. These are just 4 examples of the hundreds, if not thousands, of applications and registrations that they have with us over the past 100 years. So here's another thing to point out as you look at that, and you're probably thinking, huh, weird, Jason. I never see these logos in black and white. Why are they here on your slide in black and white? And again, this is how they applied to register their trademarks with us. And again, they did it for a very specific reason. By not claiming any color in their logos, they're essentially giving themselves a wide open ability to use their trademarks in whatever color they want to over the life of the trademark registration. So if they had applied to register that always Coca-Cola button in red, white, green, brown, black, gray, when they submit their evidence to us of how they're using it, we're going to look for it in red and white and green and brown and black and gray. But what if 2 years from now they decide, we're done with those colors. We're going to do everything in pink and purple and orange. Okay, well, they wouldn't be able to provide us evidence that they're still using their logo in the colors in which they registered it with us. So we're going to say, hey, sorry, guys, what's going on here? But if you apply and register your trademark without any color in it, without a color claim, we're not necessarily going to care what color your trademark is in when you submit your evidence to us. So again, it's broad protection. Now, look, it's Coca-Cola. Do they have protection for these things in their specific colors? Yeah, I'm sure they do. It's been a while since I've looked, but I'm almost positive they do. So, but they also have money. They can submit multiple applications to really give themselves this, full sort of panoply of protection. All right, so for you as a small business owner, you might want to think about protection for the brand name alone. If you have a logo, you might want to think about submitting an application to protect the logo, but you might consider submitting it with no color claim in it. So, you're not sort of like keeping yourself and always using it in particular colors. Again, it's up to you as the brand owner. Last thing I want to say about this is that the really cool thing about trademarks is that pretty much anything can be a trademark so long as it indicates source. It could be a sound like the NBC chimes, bum, 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 or the sound of a lion roaring at the beginning of an MGM movie. Or for those of you who are old enough to remember the beginnings of the World Wide Web when Yahoo was first coming into existence, they applied and registered the sound of someone yelling, Yahoo! You hear that, you knew automatically it was Yahoo. And that is actually still a live registration. I actually looked at it earlier today. That is, you hear it, boom, you already know who it is and what services they provide. Interestingly, you could apply and register just a color alone. So if you look in the bottom left-hand corner there, you can't tell, but that is actually a piece of pink fiberglass insulation. Their registration has been around for 30, 40 years almost now. So whatever. The point is, if you've ever seen pink fiberglass insulation in your life, you have been looking at a federally registered trademark of Owens Corning. You see pink fiberglass, that's Owens Corning. If you've ever received jewelry in a robin's egg blue box or bag, boom, you knew that was Tiffany's. If you've ever gotten a package at your doorstep or at your office and it was delivered by somebody in a brown panel truck and in a brown uniform, yeah, that's UPS. And those companies have registered their colors when used in those very specific ways to indicate the source of their products and services. It does not mean that Owens Corning owns pink or Tiffany's owns Robin's Egg Blue or UPS owns the color brown. It just means they have the exclusive right to use it in those specific circumstances to indicate the source of their products and services. Last one here on this page, bottom right-hand corner. Even without any wording on that bottle, my guess is all of you immediately identified that as Coca-Cola. So the shape or packaging for a product can also function as a trademark. You see it, you automatically know who it is. And that trademark has been around that bottle's been around for over 100 years at this point. But another way to think about it would be the shape of a Weber grill or the shape of a Volkswagen Beetle. There are things like that that when you see them, you automatically know who the provider of that product or service is and what the product or service might be. So I'm not suggesting you have to have any of these. Please, please, please don't think that's the case. But I do want you to think creatively about what it is that you're using with your customers. How do they identify you in the marketplace? Are you always using a specific color scheme? Or do you have a particular sound that plays when they walk into your brick and mortar store or whatever? I don't know, whatever it is. Perhaps something like that could be functioning as a trademark. When people hear it, they see it, whatever, they think of you. These are outliers here, okay, folks? These are really, really rare. Most brand owners are really focused on their brand name or maybe a logo or maybe both. But I want you to see the full scope of what's possible. Okay, so let's quickly talk about the benefits of federal registration and why you might want to consider registering your trademark with the USPTO. So here in the United States, trademark rights are created multiple ways. We're going to focus on two of them right now. That's going to be common law and federal registration. So in the US, trademark rights are based on use. So as soon as you begin to use your unique identifier to indicate the source of your specific products and services, you are creating trademark rights. Now, these are going to be based on state common law or territory common law. So your rights are going to be limited to that particular jurisdiction and potentially to that particular area in which you are operating or perhaps advertising. So, and that's okay. That's a good thing, okay? That your rights are created in this way. Now, in other parts of the world, some countries rely on the first person to run down to the intellectual property office, and they're the ones who get the rights. That's not how we do it here in the US. Here we say you have to be using it in order to get rights in it. So what that means is if you're the first user of a trademark, you may have really strong trademark rights, and they can be stronger than somebody else who started using it later, or somebody else who perhaps federally registered later on. They can be more powerful than those rights. Now, the drawback for common law, however, is that they are limited to the geographic area in which you are operating, and they can be tougher to defend. So at this point, the burden is going to be on you to say, hey, that's my trademark. I've started using it in 1997. And what I was, okay, so you're going to have to go down that to really prove to the judge or to the jury that you're the one who owns it and has the right to use it. You can do it if you want to, and they can be very powerful, but there are some limitations with common law trademark rights. The other good thing is right now, if you are using your trademark, you could put a little TM next to your trademark or an SM if you're one of those hyper technical people and you're providing a service. You could use an SM for service mark if you wanted to. But there's nobody that you have to ask permission from to put a TM next to your trademark. What you're doing is you're putting people on notice, hey, back off. This is my trademark. I'm using it to indicate the source of my products and services. There's no particular font you have to use, no style, no size. Most people put it on the right-hand side of the trademark in either a superscript or in a subscript, but it's really up to you. The point is you're putting people on notice. This is my trademark. Get out of here. Okay. The one thing you cannot do is use the R in the circle symbol. That is reserved for trademarks that have registered with the USPTO. So to be clear, you could go your entire business life just relying on your common law trademark rights. You do not have to register your trademark with our agency. It's a choice if federal registration is right for you and it's something that you would need as a business. All right. Sometimes people think they have to come to the USPTO to get a trademark or to buy a trademark or find a trademark or see what trademarks are available. Nope, that's not how it works. You use your trademark and then you might think about federally registering with our office. And if you do, because you want to have protection outside of the Virgin Islands, perhaps you're selling to other countries or to states on the mainland, cool, that's fine. You can apply and register your trademark with us. So at this point, you have federal rights that are created as soon as you get to registration. It's not automatic. There's a process. Okay. But once you get to registration, it's going to create a legal presumption that you own the trademark and have the right to use it throughout the entire United States and territories. So here, the presumption is you own it, you have the right to use it. And so the burden would flip to the other guy to prove, oh no, I have stronger rights. This is a really great benefit. You're putting the public on notice of your rights in trademark. You can bring legal action concerning your trademark in federal court. You can record the fact that you have a USPTO registration with US Customs and Border Protection. And this is an amazing benefit if you are worried about counterfeiters. So as you're aware, counterfeiters are a real big problem, and they try to ship stuff into the United States, undercutting the true brand owner. They put consumers at risk because a lot of this stuff could be made in a shoddy way. When you're talking food and beverage and pharmaceuticals and cosmetics, there's could be dirt and grime and junk and acid and fentanyl and all sorts of stuff in these things. Going to be terrible for folks. So if you're in an industry, maybe you're doing something in electronics or computers, or maybe it's apparel, maybe it's footwear, but it really could be anything. We've heard about counterfeit wine, counterfeit tobacco products, toys, games, automobile parts, airplane parts, personal protective equipment, you name it. Somebody's trying to counterfeit it and undercut you. So what you can do is say, hey, CBP, I have registered my trademark with the USPTO. I want to record that with you. Here's some information about my trademark and ways that you can identify it out there. And so CBP is going to take it upon themselves when they're doing their searches at ports and borders to use your trademark to stop the counterfeiters. Then they're going to seize and potentially destroy some of that counterfeit merchandise. And you'll see news reports about this from time to time. A couple $100,000 worth of counterfeit tobacco products, or counterfeit Labubus and Pokemon and Hello Kitty, and millions of dollars of counterfeit Apple chargers and all kinds of stuff like that. So it's a really great benefit and a way to put the federal government to work for you. You can also use your registration as a basis to extend protection into other countries. So trademark rights are territorial, which means you file in the U.S. to have protection in the U.S. You file in Canada to have it in Canada, Mexico to have it in Mexico, and so forth. So there isn't one place where you can go, pay one fee and all of a sudden be protected around planet Earth. That doesn't exist. Every country has their own intellectual property rights scheme. So if you want protection in those countries, you have to apply and register in those countries or in those regions. So your registration with USPTO doesn't automatically guarantee it, but it through our a protocol, it allows for perhaps a more streamlined way to extend protection into the various particular countries that you might choose. And lastly, of course, you no longer need a TM or SM, and instead you can use the R in the circle symbol. Okay, so now that we know what a trademark is, it indicates a source of products and services. We understand why we might want to register our trademark with the USPTO. Let's spend some time digging into how to select or choose or create a strong trademark. Because remember, it is up to you to create the trademark. It's not something that you find with us. It's something that you have and are using. So you're the one who's going to be putting in the time and the effort and the research in order to make sure you have a strong trademark. So a couple things to remember. Our mission is to register trademarks. As an agency, we want to be able to register your trademark. Our default is to say yes. However, there are situations in which we cannot say yes. So not every trademark is actually registrable. We're going to talk about two of the main reasons why in just a second. And the other thing to keep in mind is that not every trademark registration is going to be enforceable. Which I know sounds really weird because you're saying, Jason, somebody spends all this time and effort to register their trademark with you, and you're saying they can't enforce it? Yeah, maybe, because of these common law trademark rights. And sometimes common law trademark rights are actually stronger than federal registration rights. And if we have time, we can talk about Burger King, because that is one example where that happened. So, but the main point is, especially as you're just starting your business, or maybe you've been up and running for a little bit, it's a good time to do a little diagnosis. you want to make sure that your trademark is going to be both federally registrable and legally protectable. And the two things we're going to talk about right now are hopefully going to help you overcome some of those hurdles. The two things we're going to talk about are called likelihood of confusion and strength of your trademark, also known as distinctiveness. And these two things right here, these refusals that you see on the screen, these are the two main reasons why trademarks are refused registration. So as you heard in my bio, I started off my career at the USPTO as a trademark examining attorney. I was one of the folks who would be looking at your application. And these are two of the main refusals that I would need to write. And I didn't want to, but I had to. Okay. So if you can avoid these two things, it's really going to improve your odds of being able to register. Again, not a guarantee, but these are two really big hurdles that you can get over by avoiding them from the very beginning. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about this thing called likelihood of confusion. It's kind of weird language, but really what it boils down to is remembering what a trademark is and does. A trademark indicates the source of specific products and services. If it is instead confusing consumers, it's not really doing its job. And our agency is not allowed to let you register a trademark that is likely to cause confusion amongst consumers if they were to encounter them in the marketplace. So there's a fairly complex test that is used by the examining attorney to determine this, to do this analysis, but we're going to boil it down to two main things. Okay, so let's say that you applied to register a trademark. The examining attorney is going to be assigned your application, and she's going to look in our database, and she's going to look to see, has anyone else already registered a trademark that is similar to this one and used with related goods and services? If so, there'll be a refusal. If not, it can move on to other things. So it really boils down to these two main prongs of the test. Are the two trademarks yours? And for example, this one that she finds in the database, are these confusingly similar? Now notice, it does not say, are they identical? It does not say, are they different? It does not say, does one have a hyphen and the other? Does one have a space in it and the other has a period? Nope. It asks, are they confusingly similar? And that might mean, do they look alike? Or maybe do they sound alike? Or maybe do they have a similar meaning? Or maybe a similar commercial impression? If so, that's going to be a problem. And the examining attorney is then going to ask the question, are the products and services that are provided by each of these two trademarks related in some way? And again, it doesn't ask, are they identical? Are they different? It asks, are they related in some way? And it's a little bit of a fuzzy concept, but we're all consumers here. We know the marketplace pretty well. And so just as a rough estimate, you could probably think about, does one company typically produce both of these products under the same brand name? Or does my bank use the same trademark for checking account services that they do for a savings account or checking account and mortgage lending? Yeah, probably, right? So in those cases, we can kind of like take a rough guess at like, those are probably related. Now, what's actually going to happen is the examining attorney is going to do a bunch of research and she's going to come up with evidence of relatedness. And if there is no evidence, no problem. But if there is evidence, there's a potential refusal. Okay, so two steps. Looking at the trademarks to see if they're similar, and if so, going to move on and ask whether the goods and services are related in some way. And I'm going to give you some hypotheticals in just a second, but I want you to think about something. If I was to say the brand name Dove, what product or service do you think of? Now, for some of you, you might have immediately thought of soap. And for others of you, you might have immediately thought of chocolate or ice cream. So that is an example of a trademark, Dove, that coexists out there in the marketplace and registered with us And it's okay because we as consumers are not going to be confused when we see Dove on a bar of soap and then Dove on an ice cream bar. We do not think that the same company is producing both. We really hope that they're not because we don't want to bite into that. But that is an example where something can coexist in a marketplace. Exact same trademark, but can coexist because the goods are unrelated. Okay, let's step through some hypotheticals here. Let's say that you wanted to apply to register T Markey as a brand name for a line of shirts that you're coming out with. So you apply to register. Your case gets assigned to an examining attorney. She looks in our database and she uncovers, somebody has already registered T Markey as a brand name, but for pants. Is this going to be a problem? Yeah, right? So you do the analysis. Is T Markey similar to T Markey? Yes, they are similar. They're actually identical. But the question then becomes, are shirts related to pants? And you and I know that the answer is yes. Amongst us, we could probably come up easily with 20 examples of brands that use the same brand name that they do on shirts that they do on pants. Think through your Nike and Reebok and Adidas and Asics and Mizuno or Diodora or whatever it happens to be. Yeah, they're going to be using it. Yeah, there's going to be plenty of evidence. So if this was you, in this case, there would be a refusal to register your trademark. So let me switch up the hypothetical. Let's say that you applied to register T Markey as a brand name for shirts. Examining attorney looks in the database and she uncovers T Markey has been registered for pants. Is this a problem? And again, the answer is yes. We already know that shirts are related to pants. So it really boils down to, is T Markey similar to T Markey? Yeah, right? They might not look alike, but they sure sound alike. T Markey. Which brand name did I say? Who knows? I don't even know which one I said. So in this case, again, a refusal because the trademarks are similar. And in addition, the products and services, or the products in this case, are related. Let me give you one more. So you apply to register T Markey as a brand name for shirts. The examining attorney uncovers T Markey has been registered for golf flags. Is this a problem? And I have to tell you, I don't know. I don't know the answer here. And part of it is because I have not done the research. And even if I did know, this is not a case. So I wouldn't be able to give you the answer because I'm not allowed to provide legal advice or pre-application analysis. But we can do the analysis ourselves. Is T Markey similar to T Markey? Yeah. So what it really boils down to are shirts related to golf flags. And we would have to do research. We would go online, we might look through catalogs or something. I don't know. We would look to discover, are there brands out there that use the same brand name for shirts and also for their golf flags? Or vice versa, are there golf flag companies that also use their same brand name on a line of shirts that they sell to consumers? I don't know. I mean, so here maybe it's okay, but it would really boil down to the research. And the reason that I typically don't give you an answer as well is because I want you to start thinking for yourself about the sort of research that you might do so you can conduct this exact same analysis concerning your trademark. This is referred to as conducting a clearance search. You want to clear the area around your trademark to make sure you're not trampling on somebody else's trademark rights. And so one way that you might do that at a very base level, step one is looking in our database. You would look on your own for free. It's no charge. It's available 24/7. You can look in our database and look to see and do that exact same analysis that we just did. Has somebody else already applied for or registered a trademark that is similar to yours and used with related goods and services? Now, we also recommend that you do some common law searching, just looking, use Google, Bing, Yahoo, DuckDuckGo, whatever you want, Chat GPT, I guess. You could start to bring some AI into the thing if you wanted to. Use a whole lot of different resources. And what you're going to be doing is looking to see, is there anybody else in the United States who is using a similar trademark to mine for related goods and services? If so, there's a potential problem. So you're going to want to know about it because you don't want to go down the path of applying and registering, and all of a sudden somebody pops up out of the woodwork and is like, whoa, 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 whoa. I've been here, I've been using this, I haven't registered it because I don't have to, but I have stronger rights than you, so get out. Okay? So you want to do this kind of searching on your own. Very, very base level. This is what we recommend. Now, we also recommend do more. Okay. You might want to consider working with an experienced trademark attorney who could conduct more of a comprehensive clearance search. So, not just looking in the places that we've talked about, but in a whole bunch of other places as well. You really want to have a good picture of what's out there, because otherwise you could be starting down the line of like, oh, this is going to be my trademark, this is going to be my business, and then you run into a block later on. You've already built up a clientele, you've got all this marketing stuff, you've got product, you've got these things, and all of a sudden, uh-oh, you have to stop using your trademark because somebody else has stronger rights than you do. Look, I have a buddy of mine who's started up a staffing business, and he loved the name, his brand name for his staffing business. And he was looking to expand into another city, and he uncovered somebody else was already using that exact same thing in this other city. So he had to change. He was proactive about it. He stopped using that trademark. He came up with a brand new trademark. Thankfully, he was able to bring his clients along with him because they knew him and loved him and loved the work that he did. But it was a big deal for him. So that happens in business. It could happen to you. You just want to be careful and be thinking through your trademark and what potential trouble could be out there. Okay, so that's one of the reasons for refusal. Ooh, all right, let's talk about a different reason, which is going to be the strength of your trademark. So again, we think through what does a trademark do? It indicates the source of products and services. So if a trademark is not indicating source, it is not doing its job. So one of the things that we ask is, does your trademark merely describe what your products and services are, or a feature of those products and services? If so, that's a problem because it's not indicating source. It's just telling you what the product is or telling you something about the product. Now, I know there's probably going to be marketing people who are saying, hey, that's a good thing because that means that consumers automatically know what your stuff is. Okay, that might work from a marketing perspective, but from a trademark perspective, it's a potential problem because you'll never be able to protect your brand name because it is descriptive of your product. Let me show you what I mean by that. Okay, so there's this thing that's called the distinctiveness spectrum. But I like to think about it as a temperature gauge that goes weak to strong or cold to hot. And you want your trademark to be in the hot range. You want it to be fanciful or arbitrary or suggestive. That's the distinctive area of this spectrum. You want to avoid the cold stuff down at the bottom. So at the very bottom, the generic name for the product isn't even a trademark at all. It is just the common everyday name for the thing. It is unregistrable at our office. An example would be milk for a dairy-based beverage. Your brand name is milk and you're providing milk. Yeah, that's not going to work because it's not indicating source, it's just telling you what the thing is. So let's say that I was a ceramicist. Sorry, this is very full with coffee, so I don't want to spill it. But let's say that I make mugs and I'm like, I wonder, let's see, my brand name for my mugs should be mug. That's not going to work because it's just telling you what the product is. All right. So be thinking about that. You want to avoid those situations because you will not be able to protect that because it won't be functioning as a brand name. So as we move up our spectrum, you might consider a descriptive trademark. I've already warned you, descriptive trademarks have some problems, okay? They will be refused registration. They are unregisterable on the principal register. I know I didn't say principal register earlier, but that's what you want to be on to get all those nationwide benefits. There is another register, which is for trademarks that are capable of functioning as trademarks, but they're not really there yet. They don't have access to all the really great benefits. So everybody wants to be on the principal register. Okay, that's the main one. That's what you want to be on. So if your trademark is descriptive, it's not necessarily registrable there unless you can show us that it is no longer descriptive, but has now acquired distinctiveness. Hey, USPTO, it's not describing my mug. It's distinctive, and people recognize it. And typically, this takes a good 5+ years, maybe a ton of evidence of the advertising and the fact that people do recognize it as a trademark, not as a descriptor. All those sorts of stuff. It's tough. It's very tough. And if you do get that registration, your scope of protection is actually going to be kind of small. An example of a descriptive trademark is Scoop for ice cream that was refused registration. The Trademark Trial and Appeal Board, which is our sort of in-house, appeals board, they said no. Scoop is descriptive of a serving size of the product, so that's a no-go. Refused. Okay, so let's talk about the good stuff. This is where, when you're conducting a diagnosis of your own trademark, you might want to think about perhaps it's suggestive. Okay, so in this case, your trademark suggests something about your product or service. An example would be copper tone for suntan lotion. So the wording copper tone doesn't describe suntan lotion. It suggests that if you put the lotion on your skin and you go out into the sun, your skin might take on a coppery tone, but it doesn't describe suntan lotion. These are okay. These are registrable at our office, get a slightly larger scope of protection. But where you might really want to think about is the top of that temperature gauge, your fanciful trademarks and your arbitrary trademarks. Big scope of protection for both of these, okay? Fanciful trademarks are made up words. They have no meaning in English or in any other language. They are just made up, sometimes called coined terms. An example would be Xerox for photocopiers, or Kodak for camera, Kleenex for facial tissues, Pepsi for soft drinks. Totally made up words. Now, you and I might know what those words indicate because we've experienced those products for many, many years. But when they first came out, nobody really knew what they meant, and that was okay. Okay, so yes, it took time for consumers to learn, but it is a big, big scope of protection. Same thing with arbitrary trademarks. These are words that do have meaning, but no meaning in English. I'm sorry, they do have meaning in English or in another language, but that meaning has no relationship to the underlying product or service. Again, registrable. An example would be Apple for computers. The word apple is the generic term for a piece of fruit, but it has no relationship to a computer. And so it is arbitrary when used in this context. So again, big, big scope of protection. And one of the cool things about using something like a fanciful or arbitrary trademark is the fact that it ends up helping you with likelihood of confusion as well. So let's say that, for my mugs, I decided, I'm not going to call it mug brand of mugs. I'm going to come up with, muggity duggity. Okay, I've just made up that word. Okay. Okay, great. So what that probably means is when I apply to register it, the examining attorney is going to probably say, it doesn't really have any meaning. And also might look in the database and see, nobody else has really registered anything like that. So cool, good to go. And so what that means is if your competitor says, I'm going to call mine muggity buggity or something whatever, that means when they apply to register that, the examining attorney is going to be like, hold on a second, that's really similar to this other one, so get out of here, right? So the fact that you might have a fanciful trademark that you've totally made up means it's less likely that your competitors have the same thing, and if they apply to try to register something that's similar to it, we're going to say no. By the way, of course, you know that I'm not saying that muggity duggity or whatever I came up with is registrable. Okay, just an example. No legal advice. Okay, all right. Okay, so let's talk very briefly about filing and registration. If you do decide, yeah, federal registration is right for me, Jason, I would like to make that choice. This is kind of what the process looks like. It's really simplified right here. It's obviously more complex than this, but basically that's how it works. You apply, we examine. If all goes well, there's a weird little phase called publication. And if all goes well there, it moves on to registration. And there's all sorts of back and forth that can happen throughout this process. Again, it's not boom, 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 good to go. No guarantee. There's no way to just pay a fee and then get your registration certificate. That's not how it works. We have to examine the application. If you do decide to apply, you'll be using something called Trademark Center. It's eventually going to be our kind of one-stop shop for dealing with our office, for filing and all those sorts of things. Right now, currently, as of today, the only thing you can do in there really is file an application with us. But the great thing is, it is mobile friendly, has a guided user interface. It's automatically saves drafts, transparent costs. It prompts you for information. The reason I'm highlighting this is because the old system that replaced had none of these things. It had been around for 20 plus years. Some of you who might have filed in the past, you might have encountered it, and a version of it still exists for other documents, but eventually all that stuff will be housed inside Trademark Center. But the goal is here to make the process cleaner and clearer for you. So if, as you go through, it has some explanations and things like that. And if you ever want to learn more about it, I do trainings on filing. And so you can watch me as I do a walkthrough of the form. So in terms of what goes into the form, again, just highlights, there's more to it than this, but you have to tell us what your trademark is. You might choose, do I want to protect the wording alone, or do I want to protect what the trademark looks like? You're going to tell us, maybe upload a JPEG or something. You have to tell us what are the products and services that you're using with your trademark. You have to tell us what's your legal basis or legal reason for being able to federally register. Are you already using your trademark in interstate commerce? Or do you have a bona fide intent to use your trademark in interstate commerce within the next 3-4 years, but you haven't done it yet? Either one is fine. Okay, it's fine. Even though you're not up and running yet, it is okay to go ahead and file. It's perfectly fine. Just be aware at some point you're going to have to mend over to use, and that involves filing more stuff, paying a fee, and so forth. So it's okay. You can get yourself in the door, and a lot of folks do that. Okay. So that's a possibility, even if you're not using your trademark yet. You have to tell us how we can get a hold of you. Got to pay that filing fee. In terms of how much it costs, the base fee, the lowest cost is $350. That'll allow you to register your trademark with use of products or services that are classified in what's called one international class. If your application has goods and services that are identified in more than one class, that's fine. It's just that your fee would go up. Let's say, for example, you applied to register your trademark T-Marky as a branding for shirts, pants, socks, shoes, hats. Those are all in one class called Class 25, so that's $350, even though there's 5 different goods. If you also wanted to register it for your online retail store service featuring clothing, well, that's in Class 35. That's an additional $350, so it's going to be $700. That's kind of how the pricing works. Be aware, however, there are some potential fees that you can avoid if you do a real streamlined application. If you decide not to include information, okay, that'll cost you an extra $100 per class. If you decide I don't want to use the language that's available, Jason, in the listing of acceptable identifications of goods and services, I want to write my own. I don't want to call it shirts. I want to call it circular cloth that has been sewn together with additional pieces of cloth for a head and arms to, no, shirts, okay? Because otherwise you're going to pay extra money for doing that if you want to draft your own stuff. And if you draft something that's really, really long, you potentially have to pay even more money. So these are pretty rare. It's mostly just going to be attorneys who are filing stuff for foreign clients who run into these things. You can keep your costs low. Keep it at $350, but just, as you're going through the form, you'll just be making choices that are going to keep your costs low. As I said, there are reasons why trademarks are refused registration. We talked about these 2 that you see on the screen. There are lots of other reasons. These are, again, not exhaustive, but I do want to make you aware. Hey, geographic descriptiveness, that's a potential problem. So, let's say, I don't know, I'm going to make this up, and I'm making this up. I don't know if there's a St. Thomas coffee company. There might be. So again, I'm not I'm not bagging on them. But if you think about something being geographically descriptive, it's a coffee company based in St. Thomas. Well, does that really is that indicating source, or is it describing the location of the coffee and the company? All right. So that's potentially something that could be refused unless they were to say, no, we have acquired distinctiveness. Okay, so be careful of those sorts of things. Is it possible to register them? Sure, but you've got to jump through some hoops in order to do it. So just be aware of stuff like that. Also, be aware that if you get to registration, first of all, congratulations to you. It does turn out to be it's your responsibility to enforce your own trademark rights. So that might involve sending a cease and desist letter. Maybe you have to engage in an infringement lawsuit. Obviously, at this point, you're going to be working with an attorney to do it. We are not an enforcement agency, and there is no trademark police. It's up to you to police your own trademark. And also, if you want to keep your trademark registration alive, you must continue to be using your trademark to indicate the source of the products and services that are listed in your registration. If so, if you are continuing to use your trademark and you file your post-registration maintenance documents with us when they are due, your trademark registration can last forever. Just keep using it and continue to file your documents with us when they are due. So that means if you wanted to, for example, pass down your business to your kids or your grandkids or your great grandkids, or shoot, they sell the thing off for $1 billion. Okay, whatever. The trademark and which would be held by the company essentially could last forever, so long as they continue to use it and file their post-registration maintenance documents. And there are lots of registrations that still exist, and they're over 100 years old. Think about your Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, maybe Van Camp's beans, Carnation, instant milks and stuff like that. A lot of that stuff that came around in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Bicycle as a brand name for playing cards, over 100 years old. So this stuff can last a very long time, so long as your business is still up and running. Okay, so real quick here, how to find help. I want to highlight this. Please, please, please be very, very aware of trademark scams. Some of the largest organized crime organizations in the world have taken an interest in conducting trademark scams. There are a bunch of scammers that are out there. Please, please, please be very, very careful. These scammers could pop up at any point in the trademark registration process, even before you even start to deal with us. If you just do a search online, you might come across, like you're looking for trademark or trademark registration, and you're just looking for information about these things. You're going to see some sponsored links and a bunch of other links and stuff like that. You might see people advertising $29.99 guaranteed registration. We're a preferred partner of the USPTO. None of that is true. None of that is true. Okay. We don't have preferred partners. There are no guarantees of registration. And as you know, it's not $29.99. It's $350 at a minimum. Okay. So be careful of the stuff that you see online. Also be aware that some of these non-attorney filing firms are straight up scams. You will never deal with us. You'll just be dealing with a scammer. They could soak you for thousands of dollars. We've heard the horror stories of people that has happened to. I heard one story of a guy who was a veteran. He just transitioned out and he had his money saved up to start his business. A scammer got his hooks in him. And so all that money went to the scammer. And eventually the veteran was like, I don't have any money left to actually start my business because it went to this scammer, and we didn't even know that he existed because he was never dealing with us. Never, all of his interactions were with a scammer. So please, please, please be very careful. If you apply to register, you will hear from scammers within probably 24 to 48 hours afterwards. Even though after you get your filing receipt from us, you won't hear from us for another 5 months. So all the sort of chirping that happens after you apply to register, those are most likely going to be scammers trying to trick you and instill a sense of urgency, and they're just trying to take your money. So please, please, please be very, very careful. If you want to help get the word out about trademark scams, we would love it. We have our social media scams toolkit. Feel free to check out the link you see down there at the bottom, and help spread the word about trademark scams, so maybe other business owners don't run into situations. We have lots of great information available for you on the website. If you happen to have your mobile device handy, go ahead and scan that QR code you see in the bottom right-hand corner there. That will download our trademark registration toolkit to your mobile device. It is a PDF, maybe 18 pages long, something like that. This sort of takes you through the process beginning to end, has links to resources and so forth. We'd really encourage you to check that out and reference it for additional information. If you don't mind hanging out with me, I would encourage you to sign up for Trademark Basics Bootcamp. This is an 8-week course. We run it 4 times a year. It is totally virtual. It is totally free. We are currently in our cycle 21. We've now been doing it for about 4 or 5 years now. And our next one is today. And you are welcome to sign up right now and hang out with me at 2 p.m. Eastern. And today we're going to be talking about searching in the database. So if you want to come on back for that, it's at 2 o'clock today. See the link down there, or you scan that QR code and you can register for boot camp. Love to have you come and join. We're going to talk about the whole process. So, and plenty of time for questions as well. Lots of other free things that we have available on the site. If you're not sure if it's a trademark, a patent, a copyright, a trade secret, you can scan that QR code, take you to the IP identifier, help you diagnose what sort of intellectual property that you might have. If you have some questions that we don't get answered today, you're more than welcome to contact our Trademark Assistance Center. There are customer service folks. I do want to warn you, they used to be able to pick up the phone in like 20 seconds, but they are very short staffed at this time. And so wait times can be an hour up to 2 hours. Yes, it's not ideal. Nobody likes it, but that's where we are. So you can call them if you want to, or shoot them an email. Just be aware the turnaround is going to be very, very slow. They would love to help you, but just be aware it's going to take time. So please approach with patience and with grace. And also keep in mind that nobody at the USPTO can provide legal advice, enforce your legal rights, or recommend specific private attorneys. Okay. Well, I am happy to take some questions. I'm not sure if any have come in throughout the day today, but I'm happy to take them now. So what do you think, Shrika? Anything?
Thus far, we haven't had any questions in the chat.
Okay.
I can give persons the opportunity to unmute themselves and ask directly. So this basically has us at our question and answer segment. So Donna, I see you unmuted. You can go ahead and ask.
Okay, so I am St. Croix Pottery. It describes my geographic location and what I do. I have taken the letters SCP and used a particular font and color. But is that something, and I only want to do this because my kids live in Missouri and I would take my pottery business up there in the summer.
Mm. Okay. So again, I have to be careful here, Donna, because I cannot provide legal advice, but I love the analysis that you are doing based upon what you have learned today. So things like SCP, right? So an acronym, unless it is a known acronym out there that every time, SCP is just kind of like thrown around as the acronym for St. Croix Pottery by people, then an acronym is certainly something that can be registered and protected. So think about IBM, which stands for International Business Machines. We kind of know it by the acronym, or even KFC, right? Stands for Kentucky Fried Chicken. People might say Kentucky Fried Chicken is geographically descriptive of fried chicken. I guess fried in Kentucky, even though they fry it everywhere. So a thing like an acronym is certainly something that can be protected. But even a geographically descriptive trademark, as I said, it can be protected so long as it has become distinctive of you and what you are doing. So it might take some time to build that up, but it's possible.
Okay, I was going to say my plan is to make it so.
Yes, there you go. I love it. I love it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Alrighty, thank you for that question. And we do have a request from the chat. Can you go back to the bootcamp link?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. People going to come hang out with me today? I love it.
It appears so. And here's another question. Would your bootcamp touch on trademark infringement?
No. I love the question. It does not, because that's not something that we as an agency deal with. That's something that's like what we deal with essentially is whether someone has the right to register a trademark. We don't deal with any of the other issues. So that would be something, if you're worried about trademark infringement, I would recommend please contact an experienced trademark attorney. And the reason that I do clarify an experienced trademark attorney is what I tell my buddies. I'm like, please don't get arrested and call me, because I'm not going to be able to help you out. I'm not a criminal lawyer. I don't know anything about it. So if you have a trademark question, you better believe I might have an answer for you. So again, you're going to want, if you're worried about it, you're going to want to make sure that you're working with an attorney who understands the ins and outs of trademarks, And obviously there are going to be lots of people that have been doing this for their career, so they'd be able to help out. But it's not something that we touch on in boot camp because it's not really something that we do as an agency. So good question, though. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, so I'm not seeing the link to click for this afternoon. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Donna. Okay, we got a thank you. So that question was answered. Thank you so much, Jason, for that. Any more questions?
I can also, this is our, while I'm still sharing, this is our website. So if for whatever reason, I guess you're not seeing what you think you should be seeing, there's different ways to go about finding stuff on our site. One way is over here under training and education events. This will take you to our events page. And here we go, Trademark Basics Bootcamp Module 3 searching. You're looking for this green button to say register today.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. And you can actually, if you want to register for today and you happen to want to come back for the rest of them, you can register for modules, 3 through 8, and it'll sign you up. You won't get the WebEx login links for the next couple weeks until a week before, but you can feel free to register for the rest of the thing if you want to. So
Thank you.
just know, Donna, today, because we're talking about searching, I'm going to go through likelihood of confusion again, and you're going to be like, yes, I know it. I know it all, Jason. I know it all, because we're going to go through these exact same examples. So
Okay.
Okay, awesome. We have another question. Would you suggest registering for a trademark for my insurance program prior to offering it to the general public through a local partnership?
Okay, there's a lot going in there. Let me start off with saying I can't recommend, but it's certainly something to consider. So you have an insurance program. So it would be, you'd want to protect the brand name of the program, if I'm understanding that correctly. Sure, that's potentially something that could be done. But just keep in mind, you won't be able to actually register it until you started using it. So you could apply to register under the bona fide intent to use basis and say, once I'm up and running, I want to register. I want to register it. That gets you in the door, which is good. There's even this really kind of cool thing called constructive use priority, where if you do get to registration, that means that your use space tax back to the date that you filed, even though you weren't using it then. It's pretty sweet. So that's a possibility. But just be aware, you won't be able to get to registrations until you start using it. So if you're thinking about working with a partner, you could apply to register, and just, the partner would be aware that you don't have the registration yet, but you are claiming rights in it. I'm sure you're using a TM. Okay. And then you would also have your application in. So it's possibilities, but really kind of depends. It depends on your situation, and I guess also depends on the partner that you might be working with. If you're worried that the partner is going to steal your cool brand name, well, maybe that's an interesting thing to think about if you're going to work with that partner. But it's really up to you. It's really up to you. So hopefully that helps. So.
And we have another question. How to apply the TM?
However you want. Look, so it's going to depend. Let's say you have a website, it would just be, I guess, in the code. Or if what you have on your site is your brand name or logo, and it's, a JPEG or a PNG or TIFF or whatever file it is that you have in the code, you could, update the graphic to include it. If you had products and stuff like that, obviously that would be the next time you do a run of your product, that might be part of the logo that's being imprinted on there. Or next time you're doing a run of the packaging or the labeling or the hang tag that you're attaching, then you would update the drawing, your graphic to have a little TM. So it just depends on what you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you for those responses. You hit the nail on the head. So, okay. Everyone seems to be saying thank you. I guess we can close off our question and answer segment as I
Okay,
make some announcements.
sure. Let me bring us back over here, and there you go.
Alrighty. So The VI SBDC has so much more in store for you as VI small businesses. You can visit our website at www.visbdc.org. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and subscribe to the VI SBDC YouTube channel for new uploads of our webinars. We encourage you to download the VI SBDC app from the appropriate app store on your mobile device. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share a few of the trainings that we have coming up so you can register for those in advance. So if you can see my screen, this is the VI SBDC training portal. So after today's live webinar, if you want to see what's on demand, that means it's pre-recorded at that point. You select on demand, you hit search, and the webinar will be there. This is our webinar from yesterday, focused on AI in financials, operations, and strategy. But just to give you a heads up as to what's coming, we have tomorrow evening our Agriculture Business Center. They'll be hosting marketing strategies and AI for farming. We have one of our VI SBDC advisors, Liza, and she's going to be focusing on the importance of creative advertising and marketing, smart spending for small business marketing out of the box. We have on October 23rd, our advisor, Ms. Celia Kalusek. She's going to continue the series on leveraging AI for small business longevity. And that session is entitled Intro to AI and the Business Life Wheel. Returning on October 27th, we have Celia presenting again on AI in marketing, sales, and customer service. And then on October 28th, in person here at the VI SBDC on St. Thomas, we have Workplace Forward, Evolving Hiring and Management Practices. That's in collaboration with our VI USAID, our Agriculture Business Center. They have plenty workshops coming. We have agribusiness financial training, inventory and balance sheet part 1 on the 28th, and then part 2 follows on the 29th. We have a USPTO back again on October 28th. They're going to be presenting Learn How to Contract with the USPTO. On October 29th, we have another marketing webinar by VI SBDC advisor Liza. She's going to be focusing on how to develop and maintain a strong brand, keeping your small business relevant. And so to close off October, we have USPTO back again. Jason will be presenting on maintaining your federal trademark registration. So we pretty much have sessions uploaded all the way up to December. So we encourage you to go ahead, register in advance. You will be sent reminders, and we look forward to connecting with you. So I'm just going to go back over. Do we have any more questions? We have a lot of things happening. We have links in the chat for you guys to grab. So on behalf of the entire VI SBDC network, Jason, it's always a pleasure collaborating with your office and training events like this. And so to everyone in the audience, here's a friendly reminder, check your email. I will be sending that post-survey email. There's going to be a survey attached. There will be a copy of today's presentation. And so on behalf of the entire VI SBDC network, thank you for your time and attendance. And we wish you and Jason a productive rest of the day. So take care.